Hi everyone, it's Milo here, and I'm recording a draft for the mtgnoob and their contest, So You Think You Can Cast, and I think that I have some casting capabilities. Alright, so my first pick is a Sphinx of Athun. It's a rare, it's kind of balmy, 5/6 flyer, fact of fiction when it comes into play, and Sleep is back. So Sleep is a pretty good spell as well. Vampire, Nighthawk, and Sleep are very close. I think, though, since my first pick was blue, that I'll take another blue card. Alright. So the pick here is either to continue to force blue or take a group's pack leader. Forcing blue gives me some options, and Sleep plus Squirrel Thief is something that I like quite a bit. So I took it. Group's pack leader is a better card, but I would just rather not get into green yet. And also passing a group's pack leader and a Vampire Nighthawk makes me pretty sure that the person to my left is green-black, which is useful information. Yeah, it's also important to note that I'm not actually recording this draft, the audio for this draft, in real time. I'm recording it afterwards. That's because I actually tend to draft a little bit better and play a little bit better when I record my audio after the fact. It sucks though, because I have to go back and rewatch the draft, and I've already seen the draft. I played the draft, and it was a lot more interesting for me having done it the first time. That being said, when I do audio commentary as I play, what I tend to do is I don't speak. I just remain silent, and that's not good for anyone. So this pack has a Deadly Recluse, a Dragon Hatchling, an Encrust, and some junk. Essence Scatter is actually not that bad either. I don't mind Essence Scatter, but Encrust is like a removal spell, and it's blue, and I know the only thing that I know right now is that I'm in blue, so that's that. Alright, so we could take a Liliana Shade, but we know that if we are going to play black, we're not going to be playing heavy black, because the player to our left is playing black. So that becomes less appealing. The other cards that are of interest in this pack are Plummet, and I guess one of the two blue cards. Both of them, I feel like both of them are pretty much on the same level, especially at this point in the draft. I'm not really going for a mill strategy, because I feel like when you go for a mill strategy, it's because things didn't work out for you during the draft. However, it's still a 1/4, it's a creature, so therefore I think it's better than Rewind. Rewind is a little bit slow for my liking. I definitely prefer Essence Scatter if I'm going to play a counterspell in M13 Limited. Unsummon is a great answer. So our options now are between Furnace Whelp and Spiked Bailiff. The Furnace Whelp requires way too much red. Way more than I'm willing to commit to right now, even though we know that the person to our left is playing green. Options here are Divination or Turn to Slag. Turn to Slag is a great removal spell. Like, it shouldn't be in this pack still. Like, the rings are a serious concern, and there's so many of them in different colors. 5 uncommon slots are dedicated to rings. And as well as the Kite Sail. People play Kite Sail in this format as well. So I took the Turn to Slag. We really don't have a second color yet, and I decided to just remain open. Farseek is great. Even though we're not playing a lot of green, when you're playing blue and when you're playing green, you definitely want to be able to ramp. It's a great use of a second turn. I took the Ring here just because rings are such a pain. That's one of the worst rings, but still. And then I took the Hydro Surge. I'm never ever going to play Hydro Surge. I just want to make sure that people don't see blue cards. Because maybe somebody really loves Hydro Surge for some strange reason, and that, gives them a little bit of a signal to get into blue, which I definitely don't want. Ideally, you're going to be playing in a group of, in a pod of players who are all good, or good enough, but that's not always the case. And sometimes some people like cards that are unplayable. So the best thing you can do is just make sure that your colors aren't are being taken by people to the left and right. Even though we know that green is being taken by the person to our left, we still want to, just as a rule of thumb, almost, try to avoid it. A Slumbering Dragon, it's an interesting card. I've tried it, and it's terrible. So, that's nowhere near our pick. The other options are Public Execution, and then like we have nothing in our colors here. Public Execution or the bats, and Public Execution is way better. It's splashable. We have a Farseek. If we end up blue-green, we could splash maybe for the Public Execution. And I really do enjoy the swinginess of Public Execution. I think that you could play Public Execution well enough that you could make somebody walk right into the axe, and then the demoralizing of all their other creatures. I took an Augur Bolus because we have 2 unsummons and a sleep, and that's good enough for me as of now. And also, you know, it's not bad. A 1/3 in a kind of a slow blue deck sometimes helps. I also like Rock's Faith Mender, but we can only be in so many colors. We can only test the waters so much. The other options here are I can go into red and take one of the red cards, or I can take a Harbor Serpent, which would definitely see play in my deck, or a Water Courser, which I end up taking because I just decide that I'm playing enough blue that the ability will always be relevant, and I need creatures in a blue deck for sure. Playable creatures are the utmost importance. Another Spike Bailoff really puts us into green. This is another pack where green is quite good. I actually took a trading post in a draft a little earlier, and I wasn't blown away. So I'd rather just have a 3/3 for 3. I mean, the sack an artifact to draw a card is just like a 5 mana draw a card spell, really. And then you could pay a life to put a 0/1 white goat into play. If you have the white ring, then maybe that's good enough and you're playing white already. Then you can pump those guys up. But otherwise, it's just like it works kind of like Force Field, where it just blocks a creature at the cost of 1 life. And then the other spell, discard a card to gain 4 life, is terrible because Angel's Mercy basically says, you know, discard this card and gain 7 life. And that card is like the worst card I've ever seen in my life. I hate Angel's Mercy so much. Fairy Invaders is the closest thing to one of the closest things to a removal spell that these 2 colors can pull off. I mean, I know that green has Prey Upon, and Unsummon and Encrust and Sleep are all kind of removal spells, but Fairy Invaders also work. And they're good. They're also a 3/3 flyer. The best is when you can use them as a removal spell, and then they can stick around for a little bit longer. That's the best times. This format is fast, and if you don't get it out of the gates quickly, you're going to be overwhelmed. However, everybody can generally get out of the gates pretty quickly, and then it turns into a battle of attrition. So cards like Fairy Invaders, which can be a 3/3 as well as a card that works as pseudo removal, are very useful, not only for their versatility, but also for their staying power, I guess you could say. Whenever you can go 2 for 1, it really helps in the war of attrition. So I took a Harbor Bandit in case I splash black. It's a great card. I played it at the pre-release and I loved it. I love all of the friendly color guys. Archaeomancer, he might actually work in this deck because I have Sleep and a couple Unsummons and possibly a Downpour. Another Unsummon. I'll take it. Unsummon is quite good. Especially if you have a tempo deck which wants to maximize the effectiveness of Sleep. When you want your opponent's creatures to get the full 8 hours, that's when you need to use the unsummons as backup for the sleep. So we have a Harbor Serpent and a Kraken Hatchling. I think that there are a lot of people that play main deck things like Naturalize, so Phyrexian, and then also the Phyrexian Hulk is just not that good. Jace's Phantasm, maybe. We might end up playing it. I don't know. Depends how terrible our deck is. I hate War Falcon too. I don't really like War Falcon. And Kraken Hatchling might be what we need to hold off an early beatdown. We do have 24 playables in air quotes, so we can definitely start trimming the fat. One card that's never going to get trimmed is Talrand's Invocation. 4 power of flyers for 4 mana. Pretty good. We can get it back with Archaeomancer. That's pretty juicy. It's a spicy meatball. And then we get this pack, if you could even call it that. Like, what's going on here for us? The best cards are like Flint Hoof Boar, which there's no way we could pull off. We take a Windrake. Oh, and then that sleep comes back to us, or another sleep comes to us, which we'll definitely take because we were already planning on abusing that card. So that's exciting. Sleep is a great card. Instead of the 4th unsummon, I think we're just going to take a reliable hexproofy dude, Primal Hunt Beast. Very reliable. I think you can call him Reliable Boar. He's a boar and he's reliable. Maybe not. It's a cheesy joke. Look how much blue we're playing. That Harbor Serpent's going to get main decked for sure. Trimming it up a little bit. That's our 23 that we're looking at right now. Notice how we don't have any double green. Also means that we're probably cutting Farseek, because once we have the green to cast the Farseek, that's probably the only green we want to see. So there's no reason to be running the Farseek. Oh, sorry, I mean, it's way more likely that we'll get the islands than the forests for the Farseek, and then late game, Farseek is not great. It's not very good at all. Sure, it'll get us an island for our Harbor Serpent, but really, is that really what we want to be turning on? I don't think it is. Ring of Zathrad's still going around, and that card is really good. Other options here are Plummet and Encrust, and it's way more likely that we'll main deck the Encrust over the Plummet. Although the Plummet is still probably an important card to have on the board. Encrust is good, like, a lot of the time, so... Now we have the Green Ring, which is good. Unfortunately, we only have 4 green creatures, so it's a little questionable. The other options is a Timberpack Wolf or just another big blue guy. And our game enders are like 1 Harbor Serpent and a Sphinx, so we might as well take it to 2nd Harbor Serpent. Yeah, we get a Force Mage here. That's not bad. I like that card, especially when you have things like creatures with flying. Definitely help, as well as things like Scroll Thief, where you make it a little bit of a tougher choice whether or not to block. Elvish Visionary is good. I think that the guy who returns creatures during your upkeep can sometimes be more of a liability than an asset. Sure, we could return the Force Mage, but that becomes a very expensive pump spell. I was surprised that Tormented Soul and Duty Bound Dead were still in this pack. But we'll be definitely happy to grab the 2nd Centaur Courser. So I'm not going to hate draft when there's a main deck card in the pack for me. Flinthoof Boar is still going around, which is crazy. That card is very good in green-red. It looks like nobody's playing green-red. Neutralize is a card that, again, that's important for the sideboard, so I mean, if we were lacking on playables, we might even main deck it. It just doesn't look like we're lacking on playables here, though. We've got removal spells, we've got pretty decent creatures. We've got bombs like Sleep and Sphinx of Athun. The pump spell is definitely the way to go here, I think. It's good for the board, and maybe a 4th on summon. And then the plummet came back to us, so that's really helpful. This is a super exciting draft, I think. For me, I don't know how exciting it is for you just watching, but seeing all this blue, I mean, who couldn't get... who doesn't love blue, right? Am I right? Yeah, I'm right. And I'm not, like, upset that I went into green instead of another color, just because so much blue came around that even though the person to our left was probably playing green, it still kind of worked out in our favor. Because probably too deep on their right, nobody was playing green, since we got a lot of pretty decent late green cards. Like, a lot of the green cards that should go, like, 5th, 4th, 5th, came back to us, like, tabled to us. So. And then a lot of green players, pretty late, like late on, would grab things like Plummet and Naturalize for their board before a lot of cards that would usually make like the 22nd or 23rd card, just because they're so important for the sideboard, and they could work as main deckable cards. This is probably what I'm going to play here. That's what I'm thinking of playing. Other options are the Elvish Visionary, the Titanic Growth, the Plummet to Naturalize, the Kraken Hatchling if I feel like I'm going to get overwhelmed, a 4th on Summon, and Encrust. I think those are the only cards I'm actually thinking about playing outside of the cards that I'm probably going to play. But that is a pretty extensive sideboard for a limited deck. I felt like the draft went well enough for me that I was able to draft for the board. I took out a Harbor Serpent because I felt like my problem is most likely going to be a situation where I can't deal with an early beatdown, and just having a chump blocker that lets me dig a little bit more on turn 2 seems okay. Then I did the add land, and it suggested 13 islands and 4 forests, and I can't run 7 green cards on 4 forests, so I changed it to 5 forests, and I submit, although I think that I may switch it up into 2 Harbor Serpents for that, yeah. So I switch it up. I think it's a little bit better, like, just color-wise, that I did that. Because I don't want to be in a situation where I'm just completely color screwed. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and join me for the first round. Thanks, bye. Alright guys, I'm back, and it's time for round 1. In case you're just joining us now, my name is Milo, and I'm doing this, this is my contest entry for So You Think You Can Cast, from the mtgnoob. So we had a pretty decent opener. We have a couple forests. Since we're only playing 5 forests, it's good to see. It's good to see. It's definitely something I'm happy about. We played the island first because we have a couple unsummons that we could cast, and then he played the Ring of Evos Isle. So what we need to do now is bounce his creatures before he equips them, or in response to him attempting to equip them. It's kind of important thing to keep in mind for us. Because once his creature is equipped, we can't unsummon it any longer, or remove it in any way. That ring is quite good. If only blue's creatures were good, as well. It seems really good with something like Scroll Thief. I just really like Scroll Thief, maybe. Maybe I just like Scroll Thief maybe a little too much. Okay. So now we're going to press in, and we'll see if he's got Divine Verdict or something. Nope. So now we're going to play our Primal Humpies with 4 of our 5 forests in the deck, and leave the island untapped for the exciting bounce spell at instant speed for just a singleton mana. I could have done it there when he was tapped out, but I'd rather he waste a mana. If he didn't have another land to play, and he was stuck on 5 and he paid 1 to equip it, then I could have bounced it and he wouldn't be able to play it for a turn. So that was my reasoning there. Fairy Invaders, good card. I like it quite a bit. So much that I have one in my hand as well. We're going to bounce it. We're going to try to steal a turn. Because really, that unsummon is completely worthless if all he's got is one big flyer that's holding down my entire team and the ring on it. What we really need to do is either out-tempo him and get in there with a ton of damage, or get it to a point where we're at a stalemate and we can, but with a life lead, so that we have a couple turns to draw into a sleep and push in for the remainder of the damage. So we're just going to go in for the 3, because he encrusted my Bailiff. I didn't play Water Courser this turn because I wanted to play the Fairy Invaders. I think the Flyer is a little bit better, because the Water Courser's good only when you have the mana to use its ability. So instead of playing Fairy Invaders, he plays a Divination and a Windrake. And if he decides to equip, we all know what's going to happen then, don't we? Yep. Pick him up. I mean, Unsummon's a great card for tempo. I just want to point out, though, that we're not gaining, like, we're losing cards by just throwing Unsummons out there like that. We just have to hope that what we lose in cards, we gain in tempo. And with a deck that has Double Sleep and Archaeomancer, it's something that we can count on. We just have to be careful that we don't leave ourselves completely screwed. I feel like I'm ahead enough that I can do things like unsummon that Drake, and I feel like there's really not a lot of other options for us than to go completely all out here. We're playing into Planar Cleansing, but if we lose control at this point, we're definitely not doing well. And Planar Cleansings are rare, so. Now we can see what options our opponent has at this point. It's going to pacify our Courser, and he's going to Oblivion Ring our Invaders, I guess. Which still leaves 5 damage on board, unless he's got something else as well. Windrake. So all we need to do is draw an island, so that we can Archaeomancer and unsummon, bounce this guy and swing for, or just draw another unsummon. Yep, we'll just do that, swing for 5, and move on to the next game. Excellent. So things that we want to look at in terms of sideboard against him are Naturalize for the ring, as well as the Oblivion Ring, as well as the Pacifism, and Plummet, because he seems to have a lot of flyers, like Fairy Invaders and the Drake. White-Blue could also have something like Sarah Angel, or maybe even rares, like Sublime Archangel, or Sphinx of Bethune. Could have anything, really. White-blue flyers tend to have a lot of flyers. But since we are taking out an Encrust, because Encrust gets removed by Oblivion Ring, as well as it being a problem since it's a sorcery speed removal spell, where a creature has to tap first, and he has a ring that gives his creatures hexproof. We also have to adjust our forests and islands. We took out the Archaeomancer and the Encrust, added 2 green spells, so we added a forest. We're going to have to mulligan that. There's no way we can keep a 1-lander with 2 Sea Serpents. So I had to go for it. Keep this hand. We have an Unsummon to buy us a little bit of time, and the Sphinx with a bunch of land, so we know that we'll have a very good chance of actually being able to cast the Sphinx. And that's a great card to see, so we know we're not completely screwed. We're going to have somebody on the ground doing some work. It's also quite exciting when your opponent doesn't play their 3rd land. That makes me happy. And then we get to play our 2/3, which trumps his 2/2. We didn't see any forests yet, but that's okay, because we also didn't see any green cards yet. Alright, another island. He still hasn't played his 3rd land yet, so we can't really complain about the lands that we have. Because he's in a tough situation as well. That being said, I think that being land screwed is better than being land flooded. I'm going to pump our guy a little bit. So he's at 7 cards now, and he hasn't played a land. So I think that this is a pretty good opportunity to unsummon his lion at his end step, so that he has to discard a card. That way we're actually not losing a card from using the unsummon. We're buying a little bit of tempo because he's going to have to play the lions again, and we're also making him lose a card because he has to discard now. It still might be safer to just hold on to the unsummon, since we don't really have a lot of options in our hand, and it's good to leave yourself open by keeping something like unsummon in your hand when you don't have a lot of other spells. But at this point in the game, I was pretty sure that I'd be able to get to Sphinx of Bethune mana, so we know that we're going to be getting some cards. I wanted to play the Fairy Invaders. I really didn't think he was going to block with the Hatchling this turn, because he just threw it away, really, just chump blocked with it. But it turned out to be pretty good. I mean, it saved him 4 damage. That's what the card's supposed to do. Arctic Aven, which is a card that I like. I don't like seeing it on the other side of the board right now, because it's going to swoop in for a little bit of the old lifelink damage, and that's not what I want to see right now. My deck has a tough enough time doing damage and finishing off my opponent. I decided to pump twice and then play out the Windrake, as opposed to playing out the Fairy Invaders. Get our damage in where we can, and then we have a blocker for the Aven. And also, if he has a removal spell and he wants to get in his damage, like a Pacifism or something, then he'd be using it on our Windrake instead of our Fairy Invaders or our Sphinx of Bethune. Sphinx, which is probably coming out next turn. When you're playing against somebody who's been land stuck and you weren't able to finish the job, and now they're getting their lands. It's really scary because they have a lot of cards in their hand that they haven't played yet. They are stabilizing, and I mean they have more outs than you do, and they can use the best card for the situation because they have so many choices. So he tapped down my guys, and I took the opportunity, since he didn't have Essence Scatter mana up, to play the Sphinx of Bethune. We get a bunch of dudes, which is good, which is exactly what we want. We just want gas. Splitting up this Fact or Fiction is pretty difficult, but it looks worse than it is. He gets to make sure that I only get one Harbor Serpent this game. I mean, it really should be. I should be sealing the deal here. He only has a few lands, and I have quite a board presence. But then Clone shows up, and that's a problem. If I played my Sphinx of Bethune a turn later, I think that he may have cloned his Arctic Haven. So now he's got the Essence Scatter, he's got the Safe Passage, he's got Divine Verdict. He's got really just tons of options. I think that by giving him the Divine Verdict and the Safe Passage, they're the ones that cost the most mana. So, as well as keeping that island away from him, it makes it more difficult to proactively make moves. This way he's just on the defensive and he can't really use his mana on anything other than his spells. So when I'm going to split this up, I'm going to split it as a 3-2 split. And the question is to give which two. Like, the Welkin turn and the island are going to go with one, but which one goes with those and which one goes... That's a 2 of. I'm pretty sure he was going to take the Divine Verdict and the Safe Passage, which he does. Fact or Fiction's a good trick. I was surprised that they reprinted Sphinx of Bethune, but then they didn't reprint Runescarred Demon. Runescarred Demon's good. They should have reprinted him too. It wouldn't destroy the game. And it was nice to see him. But you know what? There was way too many cards reprinted from recent sets. I mean, it is a core set, granted, but they should have maybe printed a few more newer cards, I think. Just to make the game, like, limited, M13 Limited is fantastic. I have no complaints. It's so much fun. And that's really all I play. But there comes a time when I have cards from playing Limited, and I need to either trade those cards or sell them. And doing that is a problem when the cards aren't worth anything. So again, I decide to play the Harbor Serpent when he's tapped out. I know that he's got a Divine Verdict and a Safe Passage, and I'm probably going to have to play into one of those at some point. I don't attack with the Sphinx of Bethune because it just bounces with his Sphinx. And the Drake is killed by the Sphinx as well as the Corsair. So he's a pacifism as well, something I didn't know about. That's okay because I can unsummon and play it again. Pacifism doesn't really bother me. I'll trade pacifism for unsummon any day of the week. Or sorry, I'll trade my unsummon for their pacifism any day of the week. Alright, so we drew another forest. Might as well play the forest. It seems pretty safe to play the serpent here. I play the Force Mage, and it's a mistake, because I play the Force Mage thinking that I could swing in with Sphinx of Bethune, and either force him to use the Safe Passage, or chump block or take 7. What I'm not thinking of is that he can use the safe passage and then double block with the Sphinx and the Aven and deal 8, which would kill my Sphinx. So I go, oops, I made a mistake, whoopsie. I could have kept that for later, and it could have actually made a difference. Even pumping something like Water Crisser is super useful, right? Like, it becomes a big threat when you pump it as well. And pumping the Island Walk guy could have been good. I mean, there were mistakes. Mistakes were made. I feel obligated to explain to my opponent what my mistake was. Complete with typos. Awkward smiley. Alright. So we'll just have to hold out. And he's getting his lands now, and this is turning into a real game. He has 6 cards in hand. I have 2. I have a better board position, arguably. But he's got tons of removal. Because Safe Passage is kind of removal. As well as Divine Verdict. Like, if I attack with everybody, I lose my Harbor Serpent. Well, he'd probably just Safe Passage, kill my Sphinx of Athun. And then I attack with everybody next turn. I lose my Harbor Serpent, my Force Mage, and my Windrake. And I deal him, you know, maybe 4 damage. It's just a terrible situation for me. Now that he doesn't have Divine Verdict mana up, I know that I'm safe to attack with the Harbor Serpent. I got a Naturalize for that ring. Oh, he's got a Safe Passage. Surprise, surprise. I was a little surprised that he used it, though. Like, I mean, he could to prevent 5 damage, but it's better than just a Fog. And fogging there when he had 12 life, it might not have been the best play. This really is a stalemate, and I think there's a lot of M13 limited matches that look like this with these stalemates. So you encrust my guy. Luckily I drew Naturalize the turn before, so I can get rid of the encrust and move in again now that he's used his Safe Passage. See, this would have been the time to play the Force Mage on the Harbor Serpent, although I probably would have played it. No, this would have been the time to play the Force Mage. I think that I could play the Fairy Invaders, but then I just decide not to because I don't know if he has other things and tricks, and I forgot that I boarded in the Plummet, but I'm super happy to see it, because that is the end of his Sphinx of Athun, and now I can start going in with the team, because all of his guys have 2 toughness, and he's used his Safe Passage already, and he doesn't have enough mana for the Verdict, so this is looking super good for me. I guess you could call me a bit of a sack for top decking into that Plummet, but it's bound to draw it eventually. We've been sitting here doing nothing for a while. And look how many lands I've drawn. Not to complain, I mean, I am in a more advantageous board position. So I say everybody in the red, chins up, and he chooses to trade for my Windrake, and surprisingly, Arctic Haven for the Water Crisser. And 12 damage on stack. A second Safe Passage! Whoa! This game ain't over yet. We're just getting started. That's something he would say, I think. Maybe. Maybe he said that while he was on his side of things. Now we're just getting started. Not so fast, hotshot. Maybe those are things that he would say. Not so great now. You could say that as well, I think, maybe. Fog Bank. Womp womp. Do you guys think Fog Bank's a first pick? I think Fog Bank might be a first pick. Still has the Divine Verdict. But, hey, I'm going to make him walk right into this. See, good thing I didn't play my Fairy Invaders turn earlier. Because now I have a trick. And he's going to save the Divine Verdict for my Harbor Serpent. Obviously. So we're going to block here. And he's probably going to gain 3 life. Oh! He's going to use the Divine Verdict on my Fairy Invaders. So now he has no mana up, no Divine Verdict, 2 cards in hand, and I've got Harbor Serpent, Sphinx of Athun, and Centaur Courser, who's just another guy, and I'm okay with that. We'll go in with the team, and either take 7 or trade my Force Mage for his Windrake, which I'm totally okay with. Force Mage has done his work. Blocks the way I thought he would. Actually, I thought he would maybe take the Force Mage, but I guess it saves him a turn, because now he's at 7, so one more hit from the Serpent doesn't do it. However, but I mean, he's going to gain 3 from the Aven as well. He's going to attack again, I'm sure. Oh, Silvercoat Lion. Coming back. And he plays Tricks of the Trade, so now he has a 5/2 unblockable lifelinker. And I'm at 16, so that's good. It's a lot better than being at 15 in that situation. And we can just go in. So we draw Forest, try to push in with the team. We have to race this. That's our only hope. It doesn't look good, though. 5/2 lifelink unblockable guys usually end the game, especially against green-blue. I have unsummons. Hopefully I can draw an unsummon or something. He chump blocks instead of taking an extra 3 damage and then swinging in for 7, gaining 5 life. Might have been better. So he goes up to 12. But I still have 2 turns instead of 1 turn. If he attacked with the Silvercoat Lion, I'd only have 1 turn. I'm going with the guys again. Just to take 8. And if he has any tricks to pump his Aven, I die. Yeah. There's not much I can do. I'm holding onto Forest. I can't play Forest in response to him attacking me with the Aven. Target Arctic Aven with Forest. These are things that wouldn't work. These dual colored guys, the friendly colored guys, like Arctic Aven and Flintwood Boar and all of them, are quite good. I haven't had the pleasure of playing with all of them, just the Harbor Bandit and the Boar and the Prized Elephant. Boom! That's what I'm talking about. Applesauce. Top deck into sleep. Who doesn't love it when that happens? So I can bring him down to 1 as well. And then it's whatever he draws. If he draws an out or not. If he did it the other way, though, if he didn't block, like jump with his Silvercoat Lion, I'd be dead. And that's going to be a decision that haunts him till the day he dies. Which will be next turn. Unless he has something. Does he have something? Plains, Island Plains, Sublime Archangel, and then like a Merfolk, the one-drop Merfolk of the Pearl Trident. Right off the top, GG. No, Merfolk of the Pearl Trident. Alright, thanks for watching, and join me for round 2. Bye, guys.